It's spoiler-in time.
Podcasts have been around for over a decade, yet the concept still new to a lot of people.
They have been declared dead several times until someone else comes along and discovers them.
That's the weird part, is that people are still discovering podcasts. I think Serial helped out a whole lot.
Brian Brushwood and Tom Merritt host a show together called Cordkillers.
That's right, we should do that show right now!
Nothing weirder than watching yourself being interviewed about the show you're about to start hosting. Welcome to Cordkillers, our mission to report the intel from the front lines of the cord-cutting revolution so you can watch the stuff you love when you want, where you want, on whatever damn device you choose. I'm Tom Merritt.
Hey man, I'm Brian Brushwood, and more importantly, that was KTLA's morning news segment. They sat on that one for a while. We recorded that all the way back in March, didn't we?
Yeah, something like that. It was when you were in town last. And Rich DeMuro, former CNET alum that I worked with, works at KTLA, said it was the longest time period in getting a story to air that he thinks he may have ever seen.
Was it a case of just like there was always something more pressing, or a case where
yeah, it's an evergreen story, right? So my guess is, yeah, there was always just some breaking news that bumped it to the next week and finally made it. Yay.
Dude, that's awesome, but not as awesome as our fantastic guest that we have. Ladies and gentlemen, the director of 10 Cloverfield Lane and a verified rad dude, Mr. Dan Trachtenberg, joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Dude, this has been, I cannot express enough. I've never been more happy to get rejected on an interview request than when you kept pushing us off because of projects that were happening for you. And I'm like, oh, that's great. We'll get them eventually. And we almost missed you this time because your biggest project of all, your genetic project is about to launch, right?
Wow. I'll be sure to tell my wife that exact wording as soon as we're finished rolling on this. Yeah, I'm having a kid. I'm having a daughter any day now, honestly. We're full term, and it's about to happen.
So you might have to leave in the middle of this show, is what you're saying.
I hope not. Funny enough, our mutual friend, Jeff Kanata, just had a son, and we were all playing World of Warcraft together. We were in a dungeon, and he was our healer. And suddenly, we stopped getting heals, and he was not there, and he had to run. We heard a quick I gotta go, and he just bounced. And we completed the dungeon without him. Of course, we found someone to fill in. It was fine, but
of course.
Yeah, you hear that, Kanata? You're replaceable. Let's just get that out there.
Well, the lesson here is if your wife is expecting, play DPS. It's much easier to replace you.
Totally. The irony is I'm the tank, so I could equally screw everyone if we are playing when it all happens. But yeah.
Well, we want to talk today a little bit about some stuff going on in the industry, some things that he's been up to. So let's get right to our primary target.
Yeah.
I got an email from someone, Jackie Hearn, actually, the person who booked you for the show, pointing out that on Entertainment Weekly last week, they gave some details about Black Mirror Season 3, which debuts October 21st on Netflix. And one of the details was about an episode called Playtest, which Dan, you directed. And in the article, Charlie says Dan is fantastic at creating suspenseful and tense moods. This is our Evil Dead 2. How do you feel about your episode being compared to Evil Dead 2?
I don't totally understand it. I wonder what he means by that. Charlie is hilarious and awesome. I think possibly this is very fun. This episode, there's a lot of humor in it. And Evil Dead 2 was the funnier of at least the first two, and then certainly Army of Darkness was even more hilarious and fun. But yeah, this one's more fun. It's much more genre-y. The others all have the sci-fi bent. This is more. This has a little bit more suspense, a little bit more horror. If people don't know what Black Mirror is, it's an anthology series like The Twilight Zone, but all centered around present and future technology. The title itself is referring to the Black Mirror that is our screens on our cell phones and our television sets and all of that. I found that out while making the show. I actually assumed that the title has something to do with like it's the darker reflection of ourselves or whatever.
Oh, that's
and
amazing.
It had nothing to do with that. I was like, no, it's just your phone. I was like, oh, okay, cool, I get it. So yeah, in our episode playtest. I went over there pretty much a month after the release of 10 Cloverfield Lane, and was the last episode to shoot. But I don't know if that's going to be the order in which the episodes aired. And once again, they're anthological, so there's no real order in which you need to see them. But my episode is called Playtest, and it is video game themed, and it stars this guy Wyatt Russell, who was hilarious and awesome. He was just in Everybody Wants Some, the Richard Linklater follow-up to Dazed and Confused. But he's also happens to be the son of Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell, and I think he's quite Jack Burton-y in this episode, which perhaps gives it the Evil Dead 2 vibe as well. But he is incredible in the show. So I'm very excited for people to see it. And if you have never seen Black Mirror, all the previous seasons and episodes, they're all on Netflix. You should watch them. You don't need to, because once again, it's an anthology series, but they're terrific. And they're some of my favorite television. Before I was given the job, I was so excited to do it because I had been watching Black Mirror and loving it, and I think it's certainly the cup of tea of this audience. So I encourage everyone to watch it.
Well, okay, so the bad news is you did a really good job of answering all my questions before I got to ask them, specifically about the Evil Dead 2 reference. I'm glad to hear there's a little bit of levity. Is there an over, and again, if anything gets over the line, I know there's things you could talk about, things you can't talk about,
right.
But is there an over-the-topness to it? You mentioned Jack Burton, and of course, Big Trouble in Little China is fantastic, and it's very over-the-top, and Evil Dead 2 is very kind of over-the-top. Is that, am I sniffing in the right direction? Or
I don't know, maybe it's kind of hard to judge your own. It's hard for me to know what the thing is until I hear responses to it, and then I go, oh, okay, that's what people are getting out of it, and you hope that it's in sync with your own, but it's weird to say before it happens. Sure. I think it's a little bit more grounded than that, but shit gets crazy.
Okay, yeah, right on. Well, so speaking, you also mentioned something about show order, which in a world where Netflix tends to release everything at once, of course, that matters when you have something like Orange is the New Black, and everything goes chronologically. But in an anthology, it's as though you're editing a book of short stories, and you only place them in different orders insofar as to create like a mixtape for people at home. And again, I don't know if anything's announced. I just assumed they'd all come out the same day, and it kind of didn't matter the order.
Yeah, no, they are all coming out the same day, but that was very well articulated. And even Charlie Brooker, the creator, was talking to me about how when thinking about the order, they're really thinking of it like making an album, and just thinking of the progression in tone and that sort of thing. And all the episodes are different run times and very different worlds. So
it's a little bit. It's a little bit like the problem of arranging the order of the vignettes in the Animatrix, is what I would imagine, right? It's like we want to create this, however long hour experience, but we need something to get them hooked them instantly, something to give a counterpoint to it, and so on.
That is a deep pull, dude.
Oh, really?
Deep pull.
Yeah. We're not all 41 years old here. I'm sorry.
I think even there's 41-year-olds that do not remember the Animatrix.
Oh, so good. I rewatched it recently.
They were really good. I should revisit those.
Yeah.
They were. Well, there was like a haunted house one that was crazy.
Yeah, sure. Right? And a kid at school who self-substantiated and all this stuff. We're just going to the history of it. Forget it. All right, no, let's talk Black Mirror.
Our Animatrix special continues in a moment. But no, I was going to say, I think it will make a bigger difference in this bigger series, because up till now, the 2 seasons of Black Mirror had 7 episodes, and now you're going to have 12 episodes in one season. I remember that my wife didn't see the national anthem, which is the first episode in the entire run. Yeah. She saw I can't remember the name of it, but the second episode, which is the singing competition.
Yeah. That's probably why she watched the rest of them, because a lot of people.
I agree. National anthem is not futuristic. It's set in the modern day, and it's got a whole different gestalt. It's the one with the pig, if you know. Otherwise, I'm not spoiling anything. And that might have set her off, but the order in which she watched them worked for her. So I can see where you really want to pay attention to that.
Yeah, it's per taste. It's like it helps to know someone to recommend which kind of episode they like. Just like if you're recommending music and you know that their taste in music, you recommend a certain song to someone off of an album as opposed to another one. But yeah, and everyone has different favorites, even in that first batch of seven. I should mention there's only six being released right now, and they're shooting the next six. Very shortly.
So okay, so you're going to be in that first batch of six, though, right?
Yeah. On October 21st, six come out. I shot the sixth episode, but I don't know if it's going to be released in that order once again. But so six come out now on October 21st, and then the next six will come out at some point later. Think of it like the way Breaking Bad, I think, did this, or Mad Men did the sort of, or Walking Dead, they do half seasons now.
Sure.
Right.
So
and there was a Netflix Pixar animated series where they put it out in two batches for one season because of the production schedule made it work.
That's one of the things that's really weird is Netflix is releasing stories the way a publisher releases books. And occasionally you'll do a stunt. Like it was a stunt when The Green Mile came out in chapter by chapter mini novellas or whatever. But by and large, you expect, volume 3 of the Harry Potter series to be released all at once. I think that, I don't know, I think it's a smart decision.
Or George R. R. Martin actually broke his book up into two so that he could put one half out first,
right,
and then put Dance with Dragons out second.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I had also assumed these are hour-long stories or close to it.
Yeah, most of them are. There's one that's 90 minutes, but mine is an hour, and I think, mine's a little bit under an hour actually, and I think the others are pretty much around that length, but I don't know exactly.
So, okay, so separate from that, most people, of course, we're super, super excited about Black Mirror, but most people would know you from your work with 10 Cloverfield Lane, which has been an astonishing artistic success and I assume a financial success. I don't know. But it's, beyond that, people would know you from the Totally Rad Show. What is it like to go from somebody who is a podcaster whose full-time job is to be excited about geek culture and the internet and talk about it with his friends to somebody, of course you had been directing commercials as well, but to somebody who is, you can point and the whole world knows that you made that thing. You're like, I'm the guy, this comes out of up here and now it's there. What is that like, the before and after? Do you notice anything different?
The interesting thing is that I was directing professionally commercials. I was a member of the DGA before I even did my first podcast. So I always felt like the podcasting was more of a hobby. It was more of an outlet to talk about the things that I love. And eventually that grew into being the thing that I'm doing most of the time. But I guess because I started out thinking of myself as having this career that they intended to have. When it finally had some success in it, it was more cathartic in that sense, as opposed to feeling like it's the thing that I will never do, and I'm just a fan of these things, than becoming the maker of these things. I never thought that being a creator was out of reach. I always, and perhaps naively, and I certainly got scared. There were years where I got very scared, like it might not happen. But I think the only reason why it eventually did happen was because I really felt like I had to make that happen. I never sort of forgot about that dream and was just podcasting. That said, it was incredible. And it's funny too, because a lot of people, I remember doing the press junket for the movie, and so many people asked, how'd you keep the movie a secret? And blah, 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 blah. And the answer I would always give is that, on the one hand, it was very easy because we just did not say anything. On the other hand, it was very hard because the thing that I love most is talking about movies with people. And here I was making my first movie, and I could not say a word to anyone about it. And all I wanted to do was tell people about what the process was like and about the movie, and I could not. So that was particularly brutal, and I do look forward. And then even doing Black Mirror, and it's also very secretive. So one day I look forward to doing a movie that I can be much more open about, and really share more about the process while it's happening and all that stuff. But
is that
now
something
there's
you would
plenty of.
Would you consider podcasting the process of making a movie as it's happening, giving us kind of the along the way, or is it the kind of thing that when you're creating, it's such a black hole of your time and energy that you can't really even distract yourself?
I don't think it's a total black. It's a. You guys, what's the like not black hole but almost a black hole? It's that.
It's a pulsar, quasar. It's a neutron star.
Yeah, it's that. I still when I shot 10 Cloverfield Lane in New Orleans, I brought my PlayStation with me. I brought my PlayStation out to London, and every night after work, I would come home and play a little. I needed that to decompress. So there's free time. You know, honestly, podcasting while it's happening, I feel like that was the origin of podcasting. If you look back many years, reading sites like Ain't It Cool News, I can't remember which was first, but Peter Jackson on The Lord of the Rings and Bryan Singer on Superman Returns were doing these amazing web diaries that showed you the making of the movies before we had them. And I looked at the Superman Returns one a few years ago because I remember the way they did his like super jumps, his flying was so incredible.
There's a similar thing. Ronald D. Moore did diaries or basically director's commentaries to Battlestar Galactica episodes the moment they would be released.
Or Damon Lindelof and Carlton Cuse at first were roped into talking a little bit about Lost on the Lost podcast. And then it became the Lost podcast because everyone immediately were like, we want to hear more from them.
Crazy.
And that's a question I have is that a lot of times those things feel like something the directors are asked to do and they do them and they do them well, but it's not something that usually comes from them. It's something that they're fulfilling their obligation. As somebody who always considered themselves a director, but got into podcasting and the social network and social media side of things, do you find yourself more naturally wanting to use those, or is it the same thing, kind of like what Brian was asking, where you're so preoccupied with the creation itself that you just let other people guide that side of things?
No, I would love to do it, and I think that's why those guys, I think Peter Jackson, Bryan Singer, all the guys, and Damon Lindelof certainly, we're all geeks, and we all really love this stuff and love to share about it. It was interesting though. Working I really do look forward. The answer to your question is yes, I want to do that very much. So that really fits my personality. But it was interesting doing this thing with JJ who is not that. He's the opposite of that.
And yet is so good at it.
And he's so good at it, and things benefit from that. So it's possible that I could do that to my detriment because people were so much more excited for our movie because they only knew a little bit about it. And if there were web episodes explaining, oh, here's this thing and here's that thing, and come take a tour of the bunker and meet John Goodman, all that stuff was happening a year beforehand, I don't know that the excitement for it would be at the pitch that it was at. So
that's a really good. I wonder if it's the difference between an established property that's going back to be revisited versus something where the surprise is a brand new story. But regardless, which leads me to my next question. It occurred to me as we're chatting, like last time we talked, was out at this tiki bar while I was shooting Hacking the System, and you were working on 10 Cloverfield Lane. Although I didn't even know it was under that. You didn't even say the name. You're like, I'm working on a thing. Might be a big deal, and that's all you said. And just knowing that was at the same time.
Do you know when? I'm trying to remember if that was before I went to go shoot or if that was when we were in post or... It
would have been, I guess, 2 years ago this month, give or take. Maybe, or just before. Yeah, August of 2014.
Then I would have been about to go shoot then.
Okay, so you were in like the planning phases.
Yeah, I probably was just going to scout in New Orleans. Yeah, was just going to move there. Yeah.
Right on. Well, so one of the thoughts that I'm having now is that this is one of the few times I've seen your face on screen. Do you get in front of the camera very much these days? Do you have an interest of it?
No, that's the thing is I was bummed when we did a video pod. I mean, I knew we had to, and I wanted to for the entity, but I much prefer doing audio stuff. I mean, I have no interest in being in front of the camera, and the more I work behind the camera and see people that are great at being in front of the camera, the more that's cemented in my mind. I love talking about these things. I talk to my alumni every year at Temple. I talk to the interns that are out here from Philadelphia, and I love that. I really love sharing about this stuff, but I don't. I like making. I like being behind and creating as opposed to being visible. And yeah, and the junket experience was brutal.
No
Totally
kidding.
brutal. Yeah.
You would think that as a podcaster, you might find that more natural. What was different about it?
It certainly helped. By the way, doing all this, hosting the show, being around guys like Alex and Jeff for so long, helped me direct. I mean, it helped. It helped me when I went on meeting. I mean, really, because I was a lover of these things, but was not so eloquent when I first started. Not that I'm eloquent at all now, but being around these two actors and two hosts, two really talented hosts, which is not the same thing as acting, and they were so talented at that specifically. I really found a way to funnel my thoughts into my perfect lead into this sentence, to funnel my thoughts into clear speech. No, but it really helped me articulate myself to producers and to the studios and certainly to communicate with all the actors and the whole crew. So discussing this medium and all of its ilk. On the show for so many years really helped with that, and certainly with the junket stuff. But I mean you've heard of it, but I mean being asked the same question over and over and over again, and not being an actor, having that innate ability to say things passionately as if it's the first time you said them, even though it's the 100th time, is
Dude.
not.
If it helps from a variety entertainer who did the same 90-minute show over 1,000 times, couch it in your mind. Think of it as Groundhog Day. Think of it as like, this time I'm going to get it right. And then just each time you're like, nailed it.
But there's a rhythm to that, right? There's a rhythm to that day, or to that whole, even for you as well, where at first you're still figuring it out. And it's all very tricky, and then you're getting better and better and better at it. And then you feel like I'm on, and I don't even have to think. I can just say it, and it's all about the fun of where do I enunciate? I'm going to enunciate this word now, and I'm going to, you play with it. And then you've crested down, and it's like, I don't know if I'm saying words right now. I don't know if I said this to you yet. It's like it's playing. I love this analogy, but we all grew up playing Mario Brothers.
Sure.
And the first time you play Mario Brothers, you are moving very slowly. You're inching towards every gap, and you take each jump as it is, and very cautiously and all that. And then eventually you start holding down B to make you run, and you start taking it faster and faster. And then it's like, I can hit that brick and get the mushroom and then run up. I can do all those things effortlessly. And it's amazing. And then it's like, if I have to play fucking Mario Brothers one more time, I'm going to throw the controller.
Yes, I am so happy to hear you say that, because John Tilton literally said that last week about our blog post, our end of the week thing, where it's like watching me say more than 3 sentences in a row. He's like, he's got it. He stumbled. Damn it. That's amazing.
Totally. Yeah.
All right, so bringing it back around to Netflix for a second, you have a major motion picture under your belt. You now have an episode of a highly anticipated Netflix series coming out in a world where up until now most people have said Netflix is a great thing. It's providing more opportunities for more shows to be made, more work for people. But Kim Masters at Hollywood Reporter has an article out this week talking about how others in the industry are now starting to feel like Netflix is having too much influence. They're spending too much money. They're taking away too much talent and overstating it, but they need to be stopped, is sort of the feeling among some people that she's talking to for this article. What is your perspective on that as somebody who's obviously directly benefiting from Netflix, but also knows that, you'll want other projects from lots of different people as you look for the next project? Where do you feel Netflix sits in that industry right now?
Well, I don't feel any of what she's referring to directly at the moment. Certainly, the rise of Netflix, we benefit in a variety of ways as audiences, but even as a maker, as a creator, to have another outlet. There's some projects that we think about, that I and people I collaborate with think about, and some things don't fit to cost a certain price point and be released on 3,000 screens, and some things are too big. Some ideas are big enough for that. Some things are small enough for that. But there's a middle that doesn't really work theatrically. And now Netflix is a great venue for some of those ideas. So it's cool that we have them not just for TV shows now, but now for all original content, for original motion pictures as well. I have a question for you guys. I'm not a sports guy. I don't know if you guys are sports guys at all, but what you're describing to me sounds the way that some people consider the Yankees, right?
Yes, that's
right.
a great metaphor.
And
They're the empire, right? And it's like the rebellion is anyone taking on the Yankees.
And Amazon is the Red Sox.
Yeah, there you go.
But so is the Yankees, is the way that they, buying all the best players or what, is that been to baseball's detriment, or is that actually been a
so
thing,
to make the metaphor a little more
said
fair,
every non-Yankees fan.
to make the metaphor a little more fair, we have to acknowledge that this is a new landscape that they're going into. I mean, are they the Yankees? Because that's a closed system. There's only so many sports teams. There's only so many games. They buy all the talent. They hold the center of power. Or is the metaphor more like Al Swearingen of Deadwood, where it's like there was nothing here. There's something here. I built this. I run this. I'm Netflix man.
Well, and I bring up Amazon as the Red Sox simply because they are out there creating Emmy award-winning programming. We'll talk about that a little later. They're creating movies as well. So it's not as if Netflix were alone in the internet platform space. And obviously, all of the old players of broadcast networks, cable networks, studios are all still around too. It feels like this is kind of a natural outcome of what we've been following on this show for a while, which was, Netflix wasn't the Yankees. Netflix was the Oakland A's, right? They were called Albania by the president of Time Warner several years ago. And now they are suddenly the Yankees. They've built themselves up. Now, are they going to buy all the best players and win the World Series every year? I kind of doubt it. I feel like there's more parity to it than that. And that's kind of what I'm wondering from where you sit. Do you see it as, oh, wow, yeah, Netflix is really starting to become a huge thing? Or are you just seeing like, yeah, Netflix is becoming big, but so are a lot of other players?
I think more the latter, though. I do think Netflix is really nailing it, and I think all we have to do is look back a few years to HBO being the biggest deal ever, and still kind of is, but because HBO was nailing it on so many incredible original TV shows that were doing things that networks and other cable outlets could not do. Eventually, Showtime got in that action, and then AMC got in on that action, and now we're in the golden age of TV because of that competition that it inspired. So, I think it's a little silly to blame someone. I think the best thing to do is to get those fires lit because of someone's success is encouraging you to compete.
I do think that there's a bit of a change in that Netflix is, it is not just a blue chip, it is the blue chip of post-cable content programming. In fact, there was a project that I pitched, and I was told specifically by an agency that they wouldn't pitch it to Netflix because Netflix is only buying blue chip known quantities or things that they know are slam dunks. They don't get experimental, which maybe on the one hand, that's what you do when you have high ground as you consolidate your forces and you bank your footing. This is like 8 metaphors. It's terrible. But on the other hand, it also, like, that's what happens right before an upstart, deposes you.
Mm-hmm. I would also say I don't know that the veracity of that comment. I think Stranger Things is not a blue chip known quantity and became a phenomenon.
Oh man, that's
I
good.
don't think you could. I don't think you could have predicted that. And I think a lot of their Masters of None, which just won an Emmy last night. I think
but
there's
that's
so many
also
other
like
shows.
Aziz Ansari had lots of Hollywood heat.
He's at least a known quantity, but yeah.
Sure. Well, he is, but there's versions of comedians doing shows that aren't successful.
Right.
But the thing I'll say too is, given what you guys are all about, and I think we all believe that eventually TV will look very different, and I think Netflix is at the forefront of that. I think certainly we will all eventually just have apps rather than channels and all that stuff. But I also think. I've expressed this a few times, and I really hope it happens. I think it will. I think that I wonder if we will start eventually seeing TV on the big screen. I wonder if the thing that saves movies is that we start to have these incredible experiences that we're having at home there as well. Not just in the cycle of how things work, and thinking back to our parents' generation when they would go to the movies and they would see a serial, and then they would see a B feature, and then they would see an A feature. They'd spend the day at the movies, and it was like us sitting on Netflix watching an episode of something or binging 5 and then putting on a movie. It's the same thing, and all it really takes is. It'd be amazing if it was something like Game of Thrones. I don't know that it could be an original thing out the gate. But if Game of Thrones were to air the first 2 or 3 episodes one weekend, so you spend 2.5 hours at the movies, the same length that you would spend seeing a movie, and this is like 6 months before it's ever going to come on HBO. So we all decide to up and go to the movies and watch these shows together and have those water cooler moments walking out of the lobby, and that's the way you experience that programming. I think it would be incredible. I think it would save movies, but I think Netflix is a part of that, and everything that's happening on television is a part of things becoming different than what they used to be, not much unlike what happened when TV first came out, and people were not used to spending any time at home watching that programming and all that stuff. So
that's a really interesting thought because, and in fact, Still at Work points it out in the chat room too, Fathom Events does this sometimes. Doctor Who's 50th anniversary episode in theaters, right? Various television shows in theaters for special events. What if that became something not just done by Fathom Events, but it's done as a preview? Is really intriguing. And then I look at something like the Marvel Universe, and we all have been talking about how long can that go on as movies? What if it morphs into something more like that, where you can keep these stories going, but you don't have to spend movie amount of time on them? That's really interesting.
Well, I think the Marvel Universe is what it is. I think the secret sauce that they cracked the code on. It's no surprise that it became what it was right when we were in this golden age of movies, when we fell in love with serialized storytelling, and suddenly they did that for movies. That's what we love. We didn't used to love sequels. We didn't used to love that kind of thing. Usually this Karate Kid Part 2 and all those things were the bad thing. I loved a few growing up, but I was an exception to the rule. It used to be just Terminator 2 and Godfather 2, right? That's the only references people could make. And Empire.
Aliens, because I remember
Aliens.
Aliens was the first time that I think it was Sigourney Weaver in an interview was saying that usually the sequel is just the first movie made again. This is not that. Right. And I was like, oh my God. And then once I heard that, I saw it in all the sequels. And of course, we don't have that with the continuing Marvel franchises.
Exactly. And it's tapping into that our fascination, our adoration for spending time with characters and bonding with them over different adventures. It's what's inspired all the other studios to try and do the same thing and building out universes. It's not because we suddenly from nowhere got excited about cinematic universes. It's because it was happening in such a great way at home, and then we found a way to make it happen on the big screen as well.
Well, we got some more to talk about here in a second, but we want to take a quick break and thank everybody who makes this show possible at patreon.com/Cordkillers. And Brian, they tweaked something with the way Patreon works now. We've often said, like, just give us pennies. You can't do that anymore. They made it a minimum pledge of $1. If you pledge less than $1 in the past, your pledge is fine. They're going to continue to honor that. But if you're new, if you've never pledged to Cordkillers or it's been a while, they'll put a minimum of $1. But we have a solution. We have a hack.
Yeah, sure. But more importantly, let's be absolutely clear here. Every time we said we'd love to have a penny an episode or 5 cents an episode, we were lying. Like, that's nonsense. That's a total lie. The minimum we'll take is $0.25 an episode starting today. And so the way you do that is pledge $1 an episode and then set your monthly cap at $1. If you're one of those cheapskates. However, it should be pointed out that everybody who already has their pledge in, everybody who's already part of the support team, you guys are grandfathered in. Just never change your pledge unless you want to make it, above $1.
Yeah, exactly. And huge thanks to everybody who continues to make the show possible at patreon.com/Cordkillers. Let's get into our How to Watch segment, Signals Intelligence. So real quickly, we talked a lot about Twitter getting the NFL on previous shows. This week, Twitter launched apps for Apple TV, Xbox One, and Fire TV. And those answered one of our questions, which was, are you going to be able to watch this on your regular television? Yes, you were able to. You didn't even have to have a Twitter account. You could just launch the app and watch the NFL live stuff. And in fact, you can still use it and see other things on there. Twitter streamed that game on Thursday. CNET's Terry Collins had a representative summary of the response, which was largely positive. There were some complaints about the Xbox One app because it shuffled you off into a browser, but that was more the way the Xbox system is working. On Apple TV and Fire TV, most people found the system very, very good. You could either watch it with tweets streaming down the side or just in full stream video. A lot of people were like, I'd like to choose what tweets show up, maybe get people that I follow instead of just the overall search on the hashtag. But a lot of people watched it. 2.1 million unique viewers watched an average of 22 minutes per person worldwide. For an average audience of 243,000 in any given minute. That still pales by comparison to the television audience, which was 15.4 million average per minute and a total of 48.1 million. So not threatening that television audience, Brian, but certainly got a lot of people to watch who wouldn't have maybe, and they seem to like it.
Well, that was the interesting thing to me as we discussed this briefly before the show, and I saw these exact same numbers and was blown away because I was thinking of it in the context of any kind of live event on the internet. It's very difficult to get internet people to tune in at the same time. And if you have 1,000 concurrent viewers to your Periscope, you're quite possibly one of the top 10 most interesting things happening on the entire internet at that moment. Whereas this, to have this amount of time spent, both, the duration and the number of people, unique viewers, I thought was extraordinary. But then but your take was that's garbage numbers for sports. Sports does way better than that usually.
Yeah, it's hard to tell what this means, to be honest, because the people who really like sports already had CBS either on cable or over-the-air broadcast, and were able to watch this and would watch it that way. The people watching this on Twitter were people away from their home or people who were only mildly interested, like myself. I don't normally watch it, but I put it on to see what was up with Twitter. So there's a big question here. I feel like one big question got answered, which was, will Twitter be an acceptable cord-cutting television experience? And it absolutely was. Yes. The stream was beautiful. The second question is, okay, what do they make out of this? Can Twitter become a regular place that people watch things?
I mean, that's the thing is you build the clubhouse, you get the regular patrons, then you figure out a way to make money on it. And unfortunately, I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, Dan, I'm curious if you had a perspective on this. Did you happen to watch this by any chance?
I didn't. One question though, if they were the tweets curated?
It was by the hashtag.
Right.
Thursday Night Football, TNF. And
that's it.
And I think they were pulling out some negative tweets because I didn't see garbage in there.
Right. Just nonstop racism, sexism, homophobia.
I didn't see stuff like that. But you did see people saying, oh, the stream's buffering for me. So they weren't clamping down and only showing super positive stuff.
Got it. Yeah, I don't like this in general, though I do think football is an interesting space for this because there is lots of downtime. There's lots of lulls where I guess having running commentary from people from peers makes sense. I would be more interested in it being my Twitter stream rather than Twitter's stream, which is like the opposite of Twitter. Like I don't go on Twitter to see what everyone's saying. I go to see what the people I'm interested in.
But think of it this way: you want to watch the game, and if you want to feel like you're there in the crowd. Not everyone in the crowd is cheering for the same team you are, so that means you're going to have to hear them saying "Let's go defense" and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so this sort of virtualizes that experience, I would think.
It's a good point, and there are a lot of people that love to operate with Twitter that way. I'm definitely not one of those people, and I do wonder. I don't know. I wonder how many people really are that love seeing the general commentary on Twitter and love being a part of that giant conversation with everyone, not their own curated timeline. But whenever this is implemented, like on CNN when they have Twitter comments, or they have the scroll, or any show, if I'm watching the like after show of Catfish on MTV or whatever, it's that the inclusion of Twitter is never enhancing anything, and it just makes things feel a little bit more disconnected, I think. So I don't, but a live sporting event makes sense. But I just don't. Yeah, I don't know.
You're absolutely summarizing, I think, what all of us are thinking of. Like, well, it kind of makes sense, and you could full screen it without the tweets. But then why are you watching it on Twitter? And it's cool that they did football, because if I don't pay for any service, then I can watch it there. But I can't watch every game there, so I'm not going to make a habit of it. It's just kind of all over the place.
Are they doing Monday Night Football tonight?
No, just Thursday Night Football.
Oh, okay.
And only 10 of the games, not all the Thursday Night Football.
Okay.
But they also have some NBA pregame, postgame stuff coming. They have some Major League Baseball coming. They're going to do the debates. So it's a step, right?
Debates.
It's not a full.
Yeah, dude, the debates are going to be great.
That is not the platform that I want to.
Yes!
I mean, that's not how I want to watch them. Oh my gosh.
I guess the way I would look at it right now is Twitter is definitely not the place for this stuff, but the fact that they did it well means that maybe in 2 years, suddenly we're like, yeah, my Twitter app is the place where, if it's the Grammys or the debates or whatever, if it's live, I always go to Twitter because I know they're going to have it.
Right. Well, and as we wrap up here, we've said this before, but it's like, I feel like my Twitter feed is already clogged up with the nonsense that happens during football games. At least this way, the football game also will happen to join that feed of nonsense.
They need to work on the lag, though, because there were a couple of times where I saw tweets telling me what had happened, but it hadn't happened on my stream
yet. Man.
Oh my gosh, that's terrible.
I'm sure that's something they can technically work out, the little bug in the system. All right, let's gear up. This is the gear that you use to watch the stuff you want to watch.
Man, we got to speed up, sir.
Yeah. Real quickly, new Chromecast features releasing to everyone in a beta program. If you want to get new features before everyone else, just open up your Chromecast Cast app, tap the menu icon next to the name of your Chromecast device, choose Settings, select Preview Program, and press Join Program. And also, as part of the iPhone announcement and iPhone release, or iOS 10 release last week, Apple TV got its tvOS 10 update. It allows you to combine multiple queries for Siri into one. So you can say like gangster movies from the 80s instead of having to do two searches. Third-party apps can support Siri. It can work as a HomeKit hub, has a dark mode if you use a projector, some stuff for photos and music. The big thing, though, Brian, is they did not include single sign-on. That was the big thing for cable subscribers, was I can sign into my cable subscription once, and then it'll sign me into all the apps from all the networks.
Look, I got
that
faith,
isn't launching
man.
until October.
No, it's going to come. It's eventually. I mean, there's no way we're going to be stuck in this purgatory.
Dan, I'm curious, do you use an Apple TV or a Roku or any gear for watching TV?
Yeah, I have an Apple TV, and I was using it a lot, and then I moved, and in resetting up my living room, I realized I could avoid one more HDMI input, one more input on my remote, because I really used it specifically for HBO. HBO Go, and occasionally for renting and Netflix and for watching movies. And my Xbox and PlayStation both have all of that functionality, and even for renting digital movies, They both have pretty much
Yeah.
the same output on their stores. So I've not plugged my Apple TV in. I've just been using my Xbox for all of those needs, interestingly.
And those Xbox apps, some of them are great. Some of them are even better than Apple TV, and then others aren't. It's so variable. It's weird.
Oh, what? Like, what do you recommend?
Like
'Cause I really
Sling
just use
TV.
HBO.
Sling TV's app on Xbox has a long way to go. The Twitter app on Xbox, like I said, made you use the browser to watch the stream rather than being native to the app. So
Yikes.
yeah, weird stuff. But then, yeah, the Netflix app on Xbox I use all the time myself. It's great.
Awesome.
All right, let's see what's under surveillance. This is why we deal with all this gear and all these services. Find stuff to watch. Netflix has ordered 10 episodes of a series based on the Spike Lee movie She's Gotta Have It. Lee will direct each episode and produce with his wife, Tanya Lewis-Lee.
Never saw it. Really curious to maybe I'll try to be the canary in the coal mine and experience the TV show first and then watch the movie.
Star Trek Discovery will not debut in January as previously planned. It's delayed 4 to 5 months. A statement from producers Alex Kurtzman and Brian Fuller said that Star Trek deserves the very best, and these extra few months will help us achieve a vision we can all be proud of.
Dan, are you in favor of directors getting a little more time to get their craft right?
I would be working on Tango Over the Lane right now if I could have all the time that you. Yeah, I mean, I don't understand anyone getting upset about that. For video games when release dates get pushed, and for movies, and it means it's going to be better, or it's going to be a thing. I mean, it's possible that it's not even functioning at the moment if something's going to be released when it's not ready. So yeah, you want them to take all the time that there's plenty of things to watch. There's plenty of things to do. We don't need to rush any of what you want to be good. There's this saying that maybe you guys have heard, where something can be good, fast, cheap. Pick any two.
Yes.
Good and costly, probably the Star Trek show. So let's not rush it.
Leaves fast. Yeah. The first of 6 episodes of High Maintenance, the Vimeo show that is now an HBO show, premiered on HBO on Friday. So you got 5 more episodes to come, and it came out to really good reviews.
Did you happen to see any of those, Dan?
Yes, I have seen a couple on Vimeo. I like them. I did not fall head over heels, and I'm not like someone who's waited with bated breath to check it out. But I have friends that swear by it, and it sounds like you really do love it.
Oh,
Brian.
no, well, I liked it, but I don't know how much of me liking it is because it was on Vimeo. You know, it's when somebody, you know, it was outboxing its class, and now that it's on HBO, I don't know that I'll see it under a different microscope.
It's
Be interesting to see. All right, let's check what's under surveillance. These are things we've been watching. Obviously, Mr. Robot and Justified are things both Brian and I have been watching, and we will talk about more in spoiler in time. But Dan, what have you been watching on your own?
Gosh. Well, we were talking a little bit before the show started about how I got sucked into the VR culture with an Oculus. So I've actually not spending that much time watching television or movies as much. I did go and see they were playing at a local theater here in LA, Princess Mononoke. They were playing all the Studio Ghibli movies, and I went and revisited that movie on the big screen, and it was spectacular. I don't know if you guys I'm sure you guys are big Miyazaki fans. I don't know which one of them are your favorites, but Mononoke and Castle in the Sky are 2 of my favorites. They have the most swashbuckle, and seeing Mononoke on the big screen, there's some set pieces that are absolutely incredible. Are you guys big fans of Miyazaki?
Princess Mononoke, I have a soft spot in my heart because I stumbled across it in that free IMAX theater, not IMAX theater, that free anime theater that was in the Metreon in San Francisco, and just like wandered in and started watching it, and it captivated me. I'd never seen it before. I still remember like that serendipity as just an amazing moment because it's an amazing movie.
That's awesome,
dude. That's awesome. Only other thing on the docket, Tom, is I did watch Atlanta. We'll talk about that during spoiler time as well.
Right, and I watched this movie called Before We Go. It's directed by Chris Evans, stars Chris Evans. It's one of these kind of romantic pieces, a little like Lost in Translation, but takes place in New York City. Really strong first half hour, and then just kind of slowed down. But overall, a good movie if you're into just a a focused drama with a really small cast.
We're talking about Captain America, Chris Evans?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Right on.
Yeah.
You know
Absolutely.
what's great if you guys haven't seen I don't know if you've watched any of the Amazon pilots, but maybe you've talked about before.
Sure,
Have you
sure.
talked about Jean-Claude Van Johnson?
Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's on
so
me to go.
good.
Okay, I'll watch
And
it.
that guy, this director Peter Atencio, he's the Key and Peele director, and he's such a talented filmmaker and does these comedic films that are shot with great great filmmaking and great craft and really does every genre that he parodies justice. And so this feels like a real legit show, and it's hilarious, and it's Jean-Claude Van Damme lampooning himself, which he has done before. And I thought that last time he did it in that movie JCVD was actually pretty terrific as well. So this is a must watch, and I think you want to see it and vote for it so that it can.
Oh, that's right. It's still up for grabs. They haven't decided which one's
yeah,
go forward
exactly.
yet.
All right.
But yeah, you guys will, Brian especially, I think you would love. You have to.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Real quickly before we move on, Bryce, what have you been on the lookout for?
Hey, we got a suggestion in from Wes. Wes wrote in to tell us about Poldark. He writes, hey, Tom, Brian, and gang. Thanks for always putting on a great show. Both Cordkillers and Spoiling Time brighten my week. I wanted to plug a show my wife and I just finished. It's a 2015 remake of an old BBC show, Poldark. The show centers around a man who comes back to England after the American Revolution to find both his world and himself much changed. The show is beautifully filmed, well-acted period piece focusing on pre-Victorian England. The first episode is a little slow, but it's more of a building steam effect by the end. From what I read, the second season is filming and BBC has plans for at least 3 more after that. It's available free on Amazon Prime. Again, thanks for all your hard work. That's right. There are 8 hours of the Poldark available on Amazon Prime Video. Series 2 is airing now on BBC One, and you can watch episodes from Series 2 on BBC's iPlayer. But they only have Series 2. Series 1 is on Amazon, so you have to just check that out.
Got something we should be on the lookout for? Email us cordkillers@gmail.com. Real quickly, we always remind you of other stuff we're doing in our lives, and I've got an Inkshares book in publication. We just finalized the cover. If you want to go check out the cover of Pilot X, go to inkshares.com and search Pilot X, and you can find it there, and you can even pre-order it for when it comes out in March. Let's take a look at the front lines.
Front lines.
Emmy Awards announced Sunday evening, and here's the scorecard for the cord-cutting world. Netflix took home 3, 1 for Master of None, 1 for Bloodline, and 1 for the Patton Oswalt special Talking for Clapping. Amazon got 2, 1 for Transparent, and another for Transparent. And HBO and FX topped the medal count with 6 apiece, though HBO took home Best Comedy Series for Veep and Best Drama Series for Game of Thrones. So they kind of swiped those top 2. Sentimental win for Spoiler in Time fans, too. Rami Malek, who plays Elliot on Mr. Robot, won Best Lead Actor in a Drama Series.
So well-deserved. In a blog post, Sony announced that the HBO and Cinemax will be available on the PlayStation Vue TV service. Each channel will be available for $15 a month, unbundled. The company also announced HBO Now will come to the PS4 and PS3. Sony committed to launching both offerings before the October 2nd premiere of Westworld, which I'm so excited about.
Another reason to just keep using your PlayStation as your box there, Dan. Layer 3's so-called concierge cable is promising high-end video from a robust selection of channels delivered over the internet, but by renting privately managed networks on the back end, so they say they can deliver better streaming quality than, say, a Sling or PlayStation Vue. Its set-top box has search and discovery capabilities similar to Netflix, so you can just search by genre to see what's on. It even bundles in Netflix and Amazon on its hardware. Layer 3 plans a national rollout over the next year and a half.
I'm so curious to know what that actually looks like. So we're looking at essentially like a kind of a T-Mobile, one of these virtual carriers type thing?
Well, yeah, sort of. I mean, you have to pay for your ISP, but
Right.
then they run their. It sounds like they run their own CDN/transit service for themselves, so they can manage the bandwidth up until it gets close to you, till it gets to the edge of your ISP's network, so that hopefully they've got good transit deals with the ISPs, so that they can deliver really high quality video to you.
Do you think that this would count as authentication on all the services?
Yeah, they will probably. I mean, they're a traditional cable network that's providing They're paying a lot to these cable companies. So yeah, they'll probably be able to authenticate you too.
Right on. 21st Century Fox is suing Netflix for interfering with employee contracts after hiring away 2 Fox programming executives. Tar Flynn was hired for drama programming development last week, and Marcus Waltenberg has worked in a similar role since January. And Apple has hired Time Warner Cable executive Peter Stern as vice president of cloud services, reporting to Eddie Q. Stern was involved in negotiations between Apple and Time Warner regarding a potential television service.
So that little rumor stew just got stirred back up again when they hired the guy from Time Warner that they couldn't negotiate a deal with for a service on Apple TV. We'll see what happens with that. Vimeo announced Lionsgate will be the exclusive partner for a new Vimeo-operated television store launching in 150 countries on October 18th. Lionsgate's entire catalog of TV series, that includes things like Orange is the New Black, Mad Men, Nurse Jackie, and more, will be available for purchase through the stores. Movies are expected to be added to the store as well after launch. Vimeo hopes to attract more studio partners in the months to come.
And the National Cable and Telecommunications, and by the way, I had to read this thing like 4 times, Tom, to really grok what I was seeing here. The National Cable and Telecommunications, oh, you're going to have to take it over. I just touched my screen and
The National Cable and Telecommunications Association will change its name to NCTA, not standing for anything anymore, the Internet and Television Association. NCTA will stay in the name as a nod to the group's past, though the initials won't stand for anything. Last year, the NCTA changed the name of its annual conference from the Cable Show to the Internet and Television Expo. So they put Internet in their name a lot to prove that they're really interested in the Internet.
This is one of those lagging indicators that we talk about on the show, right? This is not an indication of things to come so much as they finally caught up with what everybody realized.
Well, and it's also showing that the predominant business of their members is no longer cable television. It's the Internet. Because they're all ISPs too.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move on to some dispatches from the front. Greg wrote in and he's having a dilemma. He loves Sling TV and PlayStation View. He loves that PlayStation View has the cloud DVR feature. It means he can catch up a show 5 minutes late and still watch it from the beginning. However, the mobile restrictions of PlayStation View make it almost useless outside the house, so he loves Sling TV so he can watch things when he visits his girlfriend's house, which is about half of the nights of the week. If either of these got the missing thing from the other, I would jump on it immediately. For the moment, though, I have View because I simply don't trust Sling or View without the ability to rewind. And I have to say, I do Sling and PlayStation View for the purposes of this show. I do find myself using Sling when I'm outside the house if I need to look at something, but those are pretty rare. If I had to pick right now, Brian, I'd probably pick PlayStation View because it has all the channels I want except for BBC America, and it does the cloud DVR.
To put into perspective my frustrations with Sling, like my options are Sling and nothing. And I'm seriously considering nothing. Like, because when appointment, and again, it's not Sling's fault that AMC wants to be hard asses and insist that there's no DVR capability, and that and although it is their fault, the times that stuff is hicked up, and when the end of Better Call Saul gets cut off and all that stuff, and their buggy software. I'm with you. I'm going to say everything. I haven't used the View yet, but everything I'm hearing about the View, for all of its flaws, at least it does the things that it's supposed to do.
Dan, are you ever tempted to use one of these online-only services for your TV?
It's fun. As you guys were talking about this, I was thinking about this philosophical dilemma I have for you, Cordkillers. That the reason why I have not killed my cords as of yet is there's something for me emotionally about when there's a bunch of things stacked on my DVR, which I know is sort of not exactly the point,
antiquated.
Antiquated. Yeah. But when there's a bunch of things stacked on my DVR, and when there's a list of things that I know I need to watch on Netflix or Amazon or any of those things, checking the box on those feels more like work. And there are times when I want to just put on TV and see what's on, and that I find more relaxing than specifically watching a show. And I wonder for you guys, Does it never happen for you that way, or is there anything in the not having cable TV world that allows you to just put on whatever's on, or is it always has to be a specific hunt for something?
If anything is going to be taking up because I do everything on my computer. If anything's going to be taking up the full screen, it has to be appointment viewing, and it's me and Bonnie giving it our full attention. If that same thing, and I get that same thing where it's like, I just want somebody to feed me things. And that's when I go to Reddit or start, scrolling through crack.com or whatever. So it's like, it's the same thing, just a different outlet.
For me, we have an over-the-air antenna with TiVo, so we can get the broadcast channels in that normal experience. But more often than not, I will turn to Sling TV for that, because when I launch the Sling TV app, it immediately tosses me into whatever channel I was watching last. And then I can just kind of page view through and see what's on. And I'll watch Home and Garden TV that way on Sling. I can do exactly the same thing in PlayStation View. It gives me live channels, and I can just pick one and watch whatever's on. But because the Roku interface for PlayStation, which is what I use more often, doesn't throw me into that live view, I don't use it as often for that. But if I were using the PlayStation version, it would throw me right into whatever channel I was watching last, so I'd get that same experience.
Got it. That's enticing.
Yeah, so we got an email here from Kirk Tom, who is asking, is there a summary of all our recommendations, something like a Cordkillers Bible?
Sort of. Yeah, I did an ebook on how to cut your cord and all the things you need to know about it, and it's fairly up to date. You can find it, A Brief Guide to Cord Cutting. Watch TV on the internet without paying for cable. Just search on Amazon for it, or you can find it at TomMerrittBooks.com.
Oh, man, only if you're a highfalutin rich person who's got 99 cents burning a hole in their pockets.
Yeah, if you're looking for something that's still less than $1, there you go. Jim wrote in and had problems activating his TiVo over-the-air Romeo, so he returned it and got a Channel Master 1 terabyte unit instead and loves it. Says it's easy setup, was up and running in less than 10 minutes. Also worth noting that the tuner was pulling in more channels for him than he could get before. He gave one to his 81-year-old mother and 73-year-old neighbor, and they all now have Channel Master DVRs.
That's awesome. Seth B. wanted to note that HD Home Run Antenna System now works with Plex as a DVR. And you can check it out, plex.tv/features/DVR. And just wanted to mention it as an option that we might want to take a look at.
Seth was also wondering how PS4 was going to do HDR, which it's supposed to do with the software update, because he's like, the HDMI port is 1.4, which is not capable of HDR. Fact of the matter is the HDMI port on PS4 is actually capable of HDMI 2.0, but they didn't ship it with 2.0 firmware. So the Ars Technica article I found said they're going to push a firmware update that will make your HDMI port on your PS4 an HDMI 2.0 port, and then it'll be able to do HDR.
What will they think of next?
I know, right? Firmware updates. Who knew? Well, that is it for this episode of Cordkillers. Dan Trachtenberg, what a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today.
Dude, thank you so much for having me. I feel like I'm leaving here learning things, which is great.
That's insane that you would say that, but thank you. If you want to follow Dan, you can find him on Twitter at DannyTRS. Where else should people look for you online?
Well, look, I mean, it's not all, well, yeah, you could rent 10 Cloverfield Lane on any of these services. And I would encourage you to do so, and or purchase it if you so choose. There's a really cool commentary that JJ and I did that I'm happy to hear people are digging in the special features. And then October 21st is the premiere of Black Mirror Season 3. I did the episode called Playtest, but I encourage you to watch all of them. From what I've been able to see, the episodes this season look amazing. And if you've never seen Black Mirror, I could not encourage you more to do so. They are incredible hours of television.
100% back you up on that. Folks, our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. We're live on diamondclub.tv Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. And we'll see you then next week when we do it again.
Hey guys, Tom and Brian here. We just wanted to say thank you to all of our $5 patrons who keep us loud, live, and independent. You guys make Cordkillers the production that it is.
Your name appears in the video credits and appears in our hearts. And if you'd like to become one of them or see who they are, you can go to patreon.com/Cordkillers.
You'll need to do more than just go there, though. You'll have to sign up and, pledge an amount. But
unless you just want to see who they are.
Well, I mean, you could gawk. That's a little creepy, isn't it?
If you want to be a gawker,
Let's go.
it's up to you.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.